What's going on, guys? Today I have kind of a little, it's not a rant, but it is something that's been sticking on my head for a little while that I really wanted to come to y'all and talk about. And that is why you don't need top of the line gear to get top of the line results. I feel like a lot of creators, myself included, have walked into photography and videography and said, all right, what gives me the absolute best of everything? And what on paper does this, and this for me? And you know, what's the best at this? That's always been how photography works in terms of the business side of it. And I say that as somebody who works in the camera industry. That is always the question you get of what's the best for ... You know, what's the best for automotive photography? What's the best for portraits? You know, so on and so forth. And I have to say that throughout all of those questions, it's kind of made me start to think about how I evaluate my gear and kind of my motives and stuff. I always thought for the longest time that I needed the most megapixels and I needed, you know, the fastest frames per second and ... You know, I needed to have the professional body. And I think so many of us fall into that trap. But I did all of that and I still felt like I wasn't able to be fully myself. And that was such a weird moment of realizing that the camera hadn't captured everything that I wanted to do about myself. It wasn't making me, all of the art I was creating, and didn't feel comfortable doing with that particular item. And it also kind of goes into this whole other thing of like, I had an Instagram that was catered a certain way and I didn't want to break that, you know, that look of that grid. And so I ended up having to create a whole nother Instagram. I created that, and originally that was a film page. That was somewhere to stick the work from, you know, this. As I went along, I realized I have all this work from the X100V that I don't know what to do with now. I can't post it to my main because what I shoot with this doesn't necessarily correlate with what I would shoot with that. And it almost is kind of weird how a camera makes you a different photographer, because with that camera I wanted to shoot landscapes and portraits and, you know, product photography and lifestyle stuff, and then I picked this up and this fulfills the lifestyle and a little bit of the portrait, but then I was doing lots of really good street photography with it. I was very impressed with the colors that came out of it, and it's a crop sensor. And people, you know, the world over are probably shaking their eyes and, you know, or rolling their eyes and shaking their head. Shaking their eyes too, I guess, and saying, well, yeah, it's a good camera. It's kind of what it's for, is street photography and, you know, all this, the day-to-day stuff. And I felt like I finally got let out of this box. And I spent a while trying to quantify that so that I could walk up on here and say, oh, I figured it out. And then I realized I don't have an answer. The answer for me in terms of how to get out of the box creatively is finding gear that allows me to accomplish the goal in a way that makes me feel like I'm there to do that thing. And I always felt so weird walking into street photography with, you know, a Canon 24mm 1.4 version 2 on an R5, and granted, I've gotten great results. I have a million fair photos and a bunch of other street photography photos from this thing that are fantastic. And some of the greatest prints I've made have been out of this camera. But there's a little bit of a but, that I grabbed this thinking, oh, I won't like this. This is crop sensor. This is small. This doesn't, you know, do 20 frames per second and ... And then when I got over all of these little prejudices that had been built up over the years of, oh, I shoot Canon, I can't possibly buy a Fuji camera, or I shoot Canon, I can't possibly buy a Nikon camera, and actually technically this is a Kodak camera, which by the way, we can talk about some other time. But once I got past all of those little like, oh, I don't want to buy that, that's the wrong brand, I started to realize that brand doesn't matter. The gear does not really matter. It matters a little bit. And I think that's where I kind of differ from a lot of creators and their videos. And they're like, oh, gear either fully matters or gear doesn't matter. I think gear doesn't matter is kind of the saying recently. I'm here to tell you that gear kind of matters. But that's all in the name of getting you out of the creative box. We as creators are all stuck trying to figure out who we are. And it's really just an extension of us as people. We're always trying to figure out who we are. But you'll spend the rest of your life hunting down the greatest lens for this particular thing, only to realize that you use it twice a year. You'll buy a camera like the Fujifilm X100V and find out that it's literally the camera that you start to trust weirdly over a almost $4,000 camera. I don't know. At 22, I don't feel like I have enough answers to sit here and tell you this is how you should live your life. This is how you get out of the bubble creatively. But at the end of the day, I know what worked for me. I know that I feel like I can go out there and create whatever I want. And that can be, videos for YouTube. It could be talking to you. The audience who have been amazing to me, by the way. Thank you for the last video. I appreciate it. All the views, the likes, the comments. We as creators love all of it. We love get to talk to you guys. That's really what I want to do here anyway. That's a whole different thing. But really just want to talk to you guys about this. And so I realize now that when it comes down to it, I have so much more to me. I was trying to fit myself in this little window of I am a Canon photographer. I shoot landscapes and portraits and weddings and lifestyle and product and this little like box, this little, I crumpled myself up into this little box and I said, this is me. This is all that I do. Here you go. This is everything about me. And I realized that I don't like this. I felt cramped. And so it started off by me picking up the shelf ornament, the thing that I've talked about before of that this was just sitting on my shelf and it works great. The light meter's accurate. The lens is, a cheap Sears, I don't even know if it'll focus. There you go. It's a cheap Sears department store 28mm 2.8. But the photos that come out of this thing, now that I've started to figure out film photography, are absolutely phenomenal, at least to me. And it feels like I have all these different versions of myself that I'm discovering. The more I start to open up the box, the little bubble, the more this starts to come apart, the more I'm like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do this. And it's just, I wanted to sit here and tell you that if you are constantly trying to define who you are, you won't really discover who you are, because you'll be so busy trying to cram yourself into a box to create an identity for yourself. Don't identify as just one thing, especially if you're a new photographer. If you're newer to this and you're like, man, my photos aren't where I want them to be. What can I do to, improve? Shoot everything, because you never know what it might be. You might find out you're a phenomenal portrait photographer. I think that my wife might be a really good portrait photographer if she ever wanted to learn how to use a camera fully. At the end of the day, it's just who you are is not defined by your work. And if you spend all of your time trying to identify your work as yourself, you will end up cramming yourself into such a small box that you end up doing what I did and just throwing the whole damn box away. And that to me is probably the most insightful thing I have at the moment. I got outside of the I'm a Canon digital photographer line thing and realized that I love film again. And I'm sure I'm among the many people that are on that boat. But not only do I love film, I love street photography, and I love, compacts. I love SLRs. I love film rangefinders. This is a new addition. Say hello to the Canon 7S. It's standing in for the Canon P that is on the way. I've thrown the Canon 28mm 2.8 on here. And for those of you who know what the Canon 7S is, you're gonna say, Alex, it doesn't have frame lines for a 28. You're 110% correct, and I don't care. I'm just gonna go off of what I can figure out, and I'm sure the photos will turn out great. But it's stuff like this that wouldn't have happened if I had just stuck to what I knew. I wouldn't have been able to say, you know what, let's go shoot film. Let's experiment. Let's be different. In fact, I'll pop up some of the really weird film photos. I shot a expired roll of Fuji Superior 400 that had actually, the first 5 frames, been shot by somebody else who was, I guess, shooting birds and grass, because that's, as you can see right in front of my face right now, what is in in kind of the double exposure. It's also the light leaks. It's just stuff like that. The creativity and the art that came out of that would not have happened if I hadn't gotten outside of the box. So just as kind of like the closing thing, so I don't rant on for 15 minutes, if I haven't already, get outside the box. Do something different. Stop doing the same thing. Find other creators on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter. By the way, Twitter's still a thing, and it's actually pretty cool, and there's some really cool people on there. Get on Clubhouse. If you're gonna be on social media, use it to your advantage and not just to scroll through Reels. I'm sure Reels are great for growth, but they're also a massive time waster. Just a little miniature rant there for you. But you are only gonna ever be as good as you're willing to stretch your limits. So get out there, guys. Do something different. Buy your X100V, your Pentax Super ME, your Canon 7S, whatever you do, what you need to do to expand your horizons. Honestly, for me, next, after I get a grip on this, probably gonna grab medium format, give it a try. I've seen enough cheap, decent medium format TLRs, pretty sure it's TLR, that I am officially sold. I'm gonna grab one and give that a go eventually. But I just want you guys to live up to all of your potential, and I know you can do it. And I'm here to cheer you along the way. If you have questions, if you're like, Alex, I don't know what to do with my life. I'm not gonna give you life advice, but I can certainly try, but it won't be good. If you're like, Alex, I don't know who I am as a creator, where do I go? The first thing I'm gonna tell you is, if you don't know who you are as a creator, just create. But I am here. If you have questions, comments, concerns, if the music is too loud in the video, I am very sorry. I'm gonna severely mute it this time. I got enough comments on the video last time to really teach me a lesson on that. Also taught me the amazing world of YouTube, that even though there's 15 comments about music noise level, it doesn't mean anything, because somebody else will still feel the need to also say something, which I appreciate your feedback as well. Hopefully we do better this time and don't make any other weird and stupid mistakes. But yeah, if you have any questions, I will be responding to comments throughout the week. I see all of your comments, so throw them down below. Like always, comment, that does help a lot. Subscribe if you guys want to keep seeing stuff from me. If you guys want to stick around, I am planning sooner or later to do kind of a street photography vlog, to fit in some other things, some landscape stuff, to some portraits. We'll bring my wife out and get to do potentially some amazing portrait stuff. I've got some ideas that I really want to try out. I just got on 100mm macro. I know I spent all that time talking about don't buy extra gear, but it's coming. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe. I love you all. I will see you guys in the next one.